got that cherry bomb.
Well, welcome to my condo.
Thank you for having me.
Normally we would, if we were in LA, we would have lights, camera, action, but we have today iPhones and we're in the basement of my condo. So thank you for joining us here.
Thank you for having me.
Don't worry, the best chats go down in the basement of Jill's condo.
I love it.
But in all seriousness, we're so excited to have you on the show today, Basma, because the work that you do is so important. It's a difference maker in people's lives, and we love that. And also because it's so unique. We've rarely, if ever, had a story like this on the podcast. So with that, let's talk about what it is that you do. Scar camouflage procedure is something that you pioneered. Tell us what that is.
So I'll walk you through, first of all, like how I even got into all of this.
Okay.
So I'll take you back a little
we're going
bit.
back.
So I was actually, when I was 2 years old, I was playing in the kitchen and with my brother, and fire started inside the kitchen. So my brother was kind of trying, he was nervous. He was trying to take the pan. It was filled like with boiling oil. He was trying to take the pan over to the sink. He ended up tripping on top of me. So the hot oil ended up spilling down half of my face. And I just remember like bits and pieces of it, even though being like 2 years old at that time, but it's like that instant shock.
Yes.
And literally I went through all types of surgeries. Like I spent so much time in the hospital. There was a point where they literally, like the medical team back home was like, she's not really gonna make it. It was so severe. So they were doing like skin grafts, but it kept failing. There was like too many complications. And I just, I ended up making it. So great. Yes.
Yay.
So, but what ended up happening, the third degree, because it was the burn, it was so bright and red. It was very hard. Like when I go outside, it's always the first thing anybody would see.
Yes.
So the number one thing they always tell me is like, what happened to your face? And the bullying, the making fun of, like, you'd think like kids are harsh, but really adults can be just as harsh. And I heard everything that you can imagine. So I came across, like being so young, I think around like 6 years old, I came across makeup. And I started playing around with it. And then I started realizing like, oh my God, like it was giving me that confidence, like that little bit of boost. It's just because it was concealing my redness, right? Yeah. So I just started literally playing with it, mixing my own colors. Back then, I didn't know I was actually doing color correcting, like mixing colors that's going to counteract the redness in my skin. I didn't really know that that's what I was doing, but I played around with it for so many years. It's just something that I fell in love with instantly because it gave me that joy.
Can I just ask how your brother's doing? Because that would be very traumatizing for, how old was he?
He was 8.
Okay, I have a son who's 10, so I'm like about to cry right now because I feel like that would be so traumatic for him as well.
It's traumatic.
Okay
I
today?
think he's very okay. We're
good.
super, super tight.
Great.
I know you're getting, it's
can't
hard.
help it.
I know. And not just, I think for that, I think my mother. So I've always been very protective, and a part of me, like we're both going to tear up, but
Who knew I was
really
gonna cry
because
today, everyone?
a part of me really, I'm so protective because I've gone through so much pain myself. I want to be like, I made this thing to myself, like I have to make it because then my mom is never going to forgive herself. My brother, like my whole family, because it's a lot when something happens like that to your baby, to your child, to your sibling. It's a lot.
It's a family event, right?
Yes, yes.
It's impacting every single aspect of your life, you know? And you're sitting here today and telling the story. It's like, I'm sure you're so used to telling it at this point, but like, I'm sure us hearing it for the first time, or anyone who's hearing it for the first time, it's just like unimaginable
Yeah.
what you've been through and what your family's been through.
Yeah,
You know?
and I think a part of it, I mean, it's a lifelong journey.
Totally.
Like that part of healing of it, like the scar is one thing, but it's just like it's a lot deeper. And so I learned to cope with it because I'm like, okay, what do I do now? You know, like this is literally who I am. So how am I gonna live life and how am I gonna move forward? So, making sure, my family's okay.
Okay,
You so that's
You're there.
they're great. But after like going through so many surgeries, that time I think around 14 years old. And it was here in Toronto. Okay. So I went to see my doctor and I was like, okay, like what's next? And he was like, we literally tried everything. There's nothing left that we can do.
And
then
so like laser, is that what we're talking about at this stage?
laser, peels, skin grafts, anything you can imagine, all types of surgeries.
Yeah.
And I was like, but I still have the red discoloration.
Yeah.
Back then he said, those were his exact words, and I'm not exaggerating. He said, take your money and go on a vacation because there's nothing left that we can do for you. And I was like, whoa, that's a lot. That was a lot to take on. And then I remember like going home that day and I said, that's literally either I give up now or figure out like a purpose for me to move forward. Right. So I started, I went online, I Googled, and then I came across permanent makeup.
Okay.
So eyebrows, like, tattooing eyebrows, eyeliner, and lips. I came across that, and then I'm like, wait, so that's a thing. You can put pigment in skin. So then I had the idea, I'm like, why not we mix like foundation color and then put it into the scar tissue, like into my scar. That was my biggest insecurity, was always the redness.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, why can't we do that? I went back to the medical community. I consulted with a bunch of doctors and I said, what do you think about that? And then they said, one, it's the worst thing that you can do for yourself. And then two, they're like, it will never work. Scar tissue is like dead skin. It won't pick up pigment. And then when I asked them, I said, well, have you tried? And they're like, no. So you're telling me that it will never work, but no one has ever tried it.
Right.
It was strictly always for permanent cosmetics.
And I feel like at that time too, probably it was very separate. Like they would almost consider that like cosmetic. That was like what your mom and your aunt did, was go get their eyebrows done or permanent. But like the medical community wasn't really necessarily dabbling in permanent tattoos or like, lack of a better word, permanent makeup.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It was always, because even I think I had like 3 hair transplants to my eyebrow. Okay. And they all failed. Literally every single hair transplant failed. But we always had the option of permanent cosmetics, but they never gave me that as an option.
Right.
It's like, okay, we'll do another 5 more hair transplants to your eyebrow, no problem. And it's like, but there are other options. And sometimes it's like you have to go and do the research yourself and push yourself. Like that way you don't feel like you're disappointed or also discouraged that there's absolutely nothing out there.
Right.
Did you then become a guinea pig? Did you go to a tattoo artist on Queen Street? Like what happened next?
So I ended up finding a permanent makeup artist.
Okay.
And I got my eyebrows done. And from that, I discussed the idea. And everybody, again, they were scared, like, you have a burn. We don't really want to touch it. Okay. For me, like, I literally had nothing to lose. I've tried everything, and I grew up in the hospital, so I'm not afraid of looking at wounds, open wounds, all of that. It's nothing to me, like, honestly. So I ended up apprenticing with a permanent makeup artist, and at the same time, I went to school for aesthetics.
Okay.
So I already had my background, but it's like I wanted to make it official. So I learned everything I needed to learn. And then while I was during my apprenticeship, I said, okay, I want to give this a try. I would mix my own colors. It was like my foundation shade. I was trying to get it as close as possible to it. And I started playing around. Like the first area was like a Friday night. I remember this. I started right here on my chin, like closer to my chin area, because I'm like, well, it's on the bone and it's far away from my eye. So it can't go that bad. Okay. And from the first time I tried it, I saw very, very subtle improvement.
Okay.
But it was an improvement. And the reason why I was able to see it, because it was like literally right on my face and I was studying it every single day. And at that moment, I'm like, no, this is working.
Right.
So I continued for a few years to play around, improve the technique, improve the pigments, all of that. And we were getting, at that time, we were getting clients that were coming in for permanent cosmetics. And they would ask me like, oh, how did you get into this and whatever? And I would share my story. And they say, Basma, I have this birthmark. I've tried everything. Nothing has worked. Can you give it a try? And I was completely honest. I'm like, I've never tried it. I've tried it on myself, a third-degree burn. I don't know how it is on birthmarks. So we went into birthmarks, accident scars, surgical scars, any type of discoloration. So I started going into it, practicing more, perfecting it. And it's like it kept growing and growing, and the word started.
Word of mouth.
Exactly. Everybody was sharing it. And then I think around like 21, I opened up. Back then, my location was on Young and Finch. I opened up the clinic, and then CNN had reached out.
Oh.
Back then, it was Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
Okay.
He heard about it, and he's like, "This is amazing. We've never heard anything like this," and it just grew
Grew from there. You called it paramedical micropigmentation specialist.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
I've never heard of that before.
Yes.
So when Dr. Sanjay Gupta came calling it sounded kind of medical, or
Yes. So this is a great question. So let me tell you something. Truthfully, when I started it, I was at that time 17, 18 years old, right? And I'm like, I want to be respected by the medical community. So what do I call it? I didn't want to be taken as a joke because of my age.
Right.
That was always working against me too. Like, you're too young. You don't know what you're talking about. So I'm like, what do I call it? What do I call it? So I look, you know how the paramedics,
Yeah.
like you see that, and it's like you see the ambulance truck and whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I literally saw that and I said, I'm going to call it paramedical micropigmentation.
Yeah.
To get the respect from the medical community, right?
Right.
And even back then, I don't know if you can still find it, my logo was literally similar to the paramedics. I know, it was
You're like,
crazy.
I'm coming, guys.
But really, because it's like, you have a great idea.
Yeah.
And I was like, I proved that it was
Right.
working. But because of my age, then I learned, I said, you know what? I have to continue to do this. Then my work will speak for itself.
Yeah. So you created your own title, which is how we know you truly pioneered this. Now, is that something that other people can now train for? Is there a certification? Are there more than one of you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So at our locations, we have technicians
Okay.
that provide the treatment. It takes a long training, like a lot of training. And also you have to it has to be done correctly because it is scar tissue.
Yep.
You don't want to you want to always aim for improving it. We're not in it to kind of make things,
Right. Yeah.
go left. So it does require a lot of training to really understand it.
So you don't need to have like nurses on site or anything like that. It really truly is more like permanent makeup
Yes.
or tattoo artist, where it's all just like learning as you go and
Yes.
refining and refining and refining your technique.
Exactly.
So there's no danger to there are no adverse side effects.
I don't think side effects.
Okay.
It either doesn't work.
Okay.
Because it wasn't done correctly, or if you don't have proper training,
Yeah.
you end up like chewing the skin.
Okay.
So that's why I say, like, because scar tissue, like a traditional tattoo artist might go really deep into your skin. They're
Okay.
working on healthy tissue,
Right.
right? So it will respond different than scar tissue, like something that's keloided, that's thicker,
Yeah.
raised, or it could be thicker under your skin. So you really have to understand scars really
Right,
well
right.
to know exactly how deep you're going into it, how it's going to respond, all of that. So that's the part that
it.
I say like that requires most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've read a lot of reviews of your scar camouflage clinics online.
Yes.
So you're like the scar fixer and you do everything from head to toe. And this is life-changing stuff, everyone. I mean, there's people with dog bites on their face. There's people who have had botched surgeries from BBLs to, or they have like keloid scars. So can you just like walk us through the process if someone's listening and maybe they do have a scar that's been bothering them, like what it would look like to come and see you, the process?
Yes. So usually it starts off with a consultation. We have to assess the area. We have to know your background exactly. What have you tried? What kind of treatment, surgery, all of that. Second thing is seeing like, do you qualify for the treatment? Like, is this going to be the answer? Or there's another option, right? Like sometimes to my colleagues, I can say, you know what, let's try this laser first, finish off with that, and then I'll get you to come in. So
Do
I
you
can
do
share.
lasers at the clinic too?
No.
It's strictly
But
pigment.
I have like a full organization of like colleagues that we work together,
Yeah.
like the top plastic surgeons, like the top estheticians, all of that, and we constantly refer. My thing is always the best results for the client,
Yeah.
right? Whether it's me or somebody else, I want to make sure that you get the best result. Like the finished result has to be the greatest. So I have to like really assess it to see, okay, is it our treatment first, or do I refer you to a colleague, get that, and then you come back? In Toronto, we were dealing with it was all types of burns, birthmarks, accident scars, a lot. When I went to Los Angeles, we were getting inquiries, but as soon as you get to LA, it's plastic surgery mecca. So then it changed. The clients completely changed. It was more plastic surgery scars. The facelifts, BBL,
Mommy
tummy tuck,
makeovers.
mommy makeovers. Like, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't really expecting that.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So
And so
that-
you've had celebrities, and
we
you can't probably say who they are, but
no
but you have celebrities in there.
we are. So 2016, I went to LA. I didn't know anything about it, but I said, you know what? Let's give it a try. In 2016, I opened up the clinic there, the second location.
Beverly Hills, baby.
In Beverly Hills, so
Yes.
in the heart.
Yes.
And within that first year, now mind you, I swear to you, I was going there with 0 clients.
Yep.
0 clients. The first year, it started like I started getting contacted by a whole bunch of celebrities, like A-listers, members of royal families. They started reaching out, and it's always, I was new to it, so it's not, they would never use their name. It's always under somebody else's name. And then when they show up, and then they have like Secret Service, like 20 guys with them, and they're like standing in the hallway, and it was so new to me.
Let's just talk about that again, we don't have to name names, but so you're camouflaging like facelift scars in the hairline, or what do you primarily do for these people?
The biggest one is liposuction scars.
Oh. So what can't you fix?
What can I fix? Nothing. No, I'm joking. No, what can I, melasma.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't touch because it can actually like make it go a lot darker. So I don't touch on that. If somebody's pregnant or breastfeeding, I don't do unless like after they're done.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's few things, and then it's just like seeing is like, are they a good candidate for the treatment?
Okay. Like what would make somebody a good candidate or not a good candidate?
Expectations.
Okay.
You know, I think expectations, like I don't BS anybody. Like I want to be direct in terms of how much can I improve it, right? Without hurting their feelings.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Absolutely not hurting their feelings, but how much can we actually improve it? And then if they're saying, no, I'm looking for perfection. And it's like I really can't.
Yeah.
I
Under
honestly.
promise, over deliver.
Yeah,
always be
that's
happy.
exactly.
Always be
That's what I
happy.
live by.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that I'm asked about a lot is ice pick scars from acne. So how would you go about fixing that? Can you do that? So for anyone listening, that's kind of where you get like the divots or that are in your
Yes.
skin, and they're just the most impossible texture to cover with makeup.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So can you fix those?
So with that, so I specifically go for discoloration, any type of discoloration. If they have color, like let's say they're more brown or red, we can definitely go in. But with those type of acne scars, because it's a loss of collagen under the skin, so sometimes, I mean, depending, there could be ways like lasers that can kind of improve the texture a little bit more. Different. I've seen some clients try to do filler, a little bit of filler in that area, but it all really depends.
Yeah.
Like exactly how deep it is, what the surface is like. So that's where like a consultation comes in for proper assessment to try to come up with the best option.
Right.
Yes.
And how long should a person wait? Let's say they've had a mommy makeover, or facelift, or blepharoplasty, speaking for myself. How long should they wait before they come see you?
It varies. So let's say we do a consultation 3 months post-op. We have to look at the area. If we get the okay from the plastic surgeon, then we can move forward. So it could be 3 months, 6 months, or we have to wait the full year.
And you
post-op.
do work on bleph scars.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
that's safe to do on the eyelid area.
We've
does it
worked
hurt?
everywhere.
Does it hurt?
Okay, so the thing is about scar tissue, there's so much nerve damage
Okay.
that you really don't feel anything.
Okay.
So that's the plus that
Oh,
we
that's
have. You don't feel anything, and we do eyelids. We've done literally every spot on the body.
Yeah.
Except like the bottom of your foot. It
Yeah.
doesn't really take there, but
Okay.
pretty much anywhere.
So you can make bleph scars, and we're talking about blepharoplasty, everybody.
So this is like on top of your eyelid.
very
Yeah.
popular
Yes.
procedure. So you can make that look invisible through
Yeah.
camouflage.
yeah. Like for
The
example,
pictures on your
since-
Instagram are insane with the
So-
bleph.
with the bleph, most of the time, like let's say for example,
Yeah.
you would do it, okay? We're just throwing it out there, okay? Chances are
I'm 2
it's
weeks
gonna-
post-op, by the way, in case you're wondering.
So what it is, it's what I can, from my experience, there's a possibility where it turns hypo. It goes white, a white scar. And let's say, for example, you have a little bit of redness, olive undertone. So we would have to customize a color that, matches your complexion. And we would go in exactly where that scar is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then blend it with everything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you get the color? I mean, so you need to have access to infinite colors. This is, I'm picturing the prescriptives counter in like the early 2000s. Like,
Yeah.
how do you do that?
Well, I did that, I think, in the beginning. I probably had maybe 400 shades. And then
50 Shades got nothing on Basma, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's with the treatment. So with the treatment, yeah, I had a lot, and it would get a little overwhelming. And then with time, I started realizing like I just learned undertones so well.
Yeah.
I can look at a person and know exactly what I need to do. Within maybe using 3 or 4 shades, I can come up with their color. So, and that took years and years and years of experience. Just learning skin, learning undertones, the best way like to see them, because sometimes they can come in and it's so hot outside and they're really, really red.
Yeah.
So I have to wait like till their temperature calms down. Then I'm able to adjust, like make those adjustments. But it's really experience.
And so you can get every pigment match. Is there a pigment you cannot match?
I haven't, and if I didn't before, I definitely found it.
Okay.
So like I that's something that I always, I told you earlier, like any type of challenge, I have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Especially for the treatment. We've had so many cases, and it's always literally, it's been over 20 years now of doing scar camouflage. I always get asked, the first question is, do you have my shade?
Yeah.
Like always,
Yeah.
they're always so nervous. Like, are you sure? And they look over to my where I prepare everything. They're like, are you sure? Like this is gonna match? And I'm like, just trust me,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Process.
It's trust the process.
Yeah.
It's fine. But that was always
Yeah.
the number one question.
And is it, how many treatments do you need? Is it just one and done?
Depending on the case, on average, I would say 3 to 6.
Okay.
3 to 6 treatments, about a month in between.
That makes
Between
sense.
each
Yeah.
treatment.
Mm-hmm.
That gives us enough time to kind of see how your skin responds. With skin, it's really interesting. Like sometimes you can do, like, let's say a tummy tuck scar and a breast lift scar. It's the same client, but maybe their tummy tuck scar will respond a little bit different than
Right.
their breast lift scar. So it's just, it gives us enough time to really understand their skin, and then any adjustments we need to make, we can do it throughout the sessions.
Yeah. Well, even like tattoos, you often will go in more than once, right?
And you're saying it doesn't hurt?
No, I can guarantee you that. Okay, I have topical anesthetic.
Okay.
I literally have every single kind, but maybe throughout my whole history of doing this, maybe I've used it like 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like literally, we barely get
Because
to
it's
use
more
it.
superficial than your.
We go a little deeper, but it's just you don't really feel it.
Okay.
Like it's like kind of like numbness in the scar tissue, so you don't really feel
Right,
it.
okay.
Yeah.
No.
Good point. Yes.
It's amazing what you can do. So what should somebody budget? Like, I know there's a huge range because the size of the scar could differ, but can you give us a range or an idea?
It can range. I mean, I would say probably between 800, depending on the size. And it goes up. It's exactly matching like laser treatments.
Okay.
If not less, okay?
Yeah.
So we try our best, and also the amount of work that is required. So let's say, for example, somebody might say, oh, it's such a tiny, tiny little liposuction scar, right? The smaller it is, the more difficult it is.
Oh, interesting.
So it's actually opposite. Then larger scars, we can do it. Like there's like room to play around with it, all of that. But with a liposuction scar, it's so detailed, it's so small that you have to be so precise with it. So it really varies, but I seen it like it's comparable to laser treatments.
Okay.
That's a good ballpark to know.
Yeah.
Yes.
What a lot of people may not know is that you've also started a makeup line. We're going to talk about that in a second. But I do have a question for you first is, have you picked up any tips? Because I know you work with like a cohort of plastic surgeons and estheticians as well. Have you picked up any tips about what works for healing scars? Like products that you'd recommend that you just have seen people have good success with, or anything, any kind of scars, stretch marks, whatever. Have you picked up anything along the way where you're like, this shit's legit?
I mean, there's some they're really not legit. Like let's say stretch mark creams and all of that.
Yeah.
If your stretch mark is white, your body's not gonna reproduce pigment because of an oil you're using or a lotion.
Right.
Like let's be real.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get that out.
I love being real.
In terms of what I've seen works, of course, is scar tape.
Oh, those are amazing.
Silicone tapes.
Those are amazing.
I think absolutely. Like after surgery, it kind of applies pressure to the scar. So if you're type that keloids, like at least it helps with minimizing the keloid.
Okay.
And that's like fresh off surgery.
They're called like steri strips, and they look like mini Band-Aids. They're silicone though, and you could just like pop them on and they stick.
Yes, they're great.
Don't waste your money on creams. Get those.
No.
Okay. We'll link to some on our website, everybody.
Yeah, but there's very, very great those silicone strips I would recommend. And really, I think, sometimes it's following the doctor's aftercare.
Okay, so we want to talk a bit about your makeup line. I understand that you were actually part of the Sephora Accelerate program. Is that right? In 2021. So now your products are available at Sephora in North America. So tell us how your makeup line kind of is an extension of what you do.
Makeup is everything to me. I literally, you might think I'm crazy, I wear makeup 365 days a year.
Okay.
Like that.
That's more than
every
us, and we're beauty
single-
podcasters.
Every single day. I don't care where I'm going. I have my makeup on. I love it. That's everything to me. So that was never, I always knew like one day I'll have my own makeup line. But because what I went through with the clinic was always like trying to prove myself, like everything was always working against me with my age. And now, you know, what I know now and I wanted to be in a comfortable position, like prove it through my expertise, my experience. I can talk about it confidently and proudly without somebody saying, oh, it's just another makeup line, you know? So for me, because I told you earlier, every client always brought that to my attention. Do you have our shade? And I thought I was the only person that has to mix colors and customize my own color, but really it was such a need. Like nobody can find their shade. Everybody was always scared to try something new. So I said, I have to do this. And it was the perfect time. I actually started in 2016 working on the foundation stick. And it took such a long time because I had this envision. I wanted like a liquid foundation in a stick format. I wanted it to be super creamy, like it glides on your face, like it's not tugging. Usually foundation sticks are a little bit more dry.
They drag,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, they drag your skin, and I don't want anything like that. So I wanted it to be easy, like on the go. You can use it to spot conceal if you don't want to put it on everywhere. So I had this idea. So it's a stick foundation. And I always wanted something that was really bold. Like I wanted it to stand out. I grew up, I was always boxed in the medical makeup, category. Yeah. So like, oh, you have a scar and that happened somewhere here. I walked into a store and they're like right away, like go over here because they saw my burn.
Here's the cover FX. Right? It was like they just didn't know how to, or it was what was that one that L'Oreal did?
Derma blend.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was like, you
Clinical.
walk in, very clinical. And I was so embarrassed, honestly, because like their marketing is all scars, like stuff like that. So yeah, I had it. I bought it because that was recommended to me. But I was so embarrassed around my friends to like take it out of my purse or bag because I didn't want to bring any more attention. So like I was very conscious of that. And so when I started working on my foundation and my makeup line, I wanted to go bold, like from the design, the color, I wanted to pop, okay? From the formula took me about 4 years. And it was honestly, no one could have prepared me for it because I didn't know, there was so much I didn't know. We literally had to test out, not the formula, but the undertones too. How do you perfect the undertones? So you go through a lot of trial and, working on that as well. And yeah, so it took a very long time.
And so how many shades did you come out with?
So we launched originally with 40 shades,
Okay.
10 per category. And we expanded it now to 42.
Okay.
But the whole goal was to also, it's a foundation, but you can use it as bronzer, contour, highlight. So it can layer on top of one another, the different shades, without having it feel too cakey or heavy on the face. It's super lightweight.
Yeah.
So took all of that into consideration. In, like you said, like in 2021, we applied to be a part of the Sephora Accelerate. And we ended up getting picked. And that on its own, honestly, like a pure dream.
Well, that's amazing. And I know that earlier this year you launched into like full color cosmetics. You now have blushes, cream blushes as well. And they're very bold. You love a pop of color. You're wearing fuchsia with us today.
Yes.
And I love that there's such a bright, they're really happy, as you say.
So all my products, I'm very careful with when we're developing. I want them to be able to layer on your skin without moving your base foundation or anything, but also everything is versatile. So meaning you can go super sheer. And I know it's a little deceiving with the blush. They look very bright, but they go on super sheer and they're buildable.
Oh, okay, nice.
So that's the thing about it that I always was afraid of, putting too much. Like you first apply it and you're like, how do I take this back? So I made sure like every product is always, you can go from sheer to bold.
Yeah.
You have that flexibility.
Okay, well, our last question for you before we let you go, there's probably a lot of people listening who have scars of, whether it was from trauma or whether they went out and had plastic surgery. What's your message to any of our listeners that might be kind of suffering in silence with their scars and don't know where to go from here?
I think honestly is accepting it as the first step, because if you're in denial, it's going to be a very long, painful journey. Like if you always question yourself and say, what if, I did this, then it wouldn't have happened, or what if, could have, all of that. All that's doing is creating more pain inside. You have to work on slowly healing yourself from the inside and taking it one step at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. Your life is your life, and the decisions we make, we are in control of our future and our story, not everybody else. So I don't play a victim in my life. I always thought like I have to do whatever it takes to push through. Like you owe it to yourself. You don't have to keep like putting your fate in somebody else's hands. Live your life freely. You have one shot. Live your life freely. You deserve to feel your best and live the best life that you can make for yourself. And don't let anybody limit you and box you in. It doesn't matter whether you've gone through it, if you're suffering from a scar or divorce, whatever it is you're going through, because a lot of people do suffer in silence. You meet them, you don't know what they're going through, but you have to work on yourself, own it, live with it, and find a way how you can move forward. And that will create the most beautiful story for yourself. You don't have to look back and say, oh, I wish I had dealt with it differently.
Yeah.
But your opportunity is now.
Yeah.
Love that. Well, what a great way to end.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Basma.
Thank
You're
you
an
so
inspiration.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.